It's the World's 2024 semifinals between the two LCK teams, T1 and Gen.G. Going into the series, Gen.G had a 10 series win streak against T1 and was known as T1's kryptonite as they somehow always managed to come out on top domestically in the matchup when it mattered the most. Whenever I saw these two teams face off in the LCK, the games felt like a very calculated chess game with a huge emphasis on the overall macro of both teams to get small advantages over time, and the series was no different. We would finally be able to see which was stronger, the T1 at Worlds buff versus the Gen.G against T1 buff, with the winner going up against BOG in the finals. Let's get into it. T1 decided to ban Smolder in every single game this series, which might be due to the previous specified Gen.G played against FlyQuest in quarterfinals, where they brought out Smolder in game 5 and just stalled the game out until they won. So T1 just said, nah, we don't want to deal with that. Gen.G also target bans ADCs most of this series, targeting Gumayusi's relatively small champion pool. It's also why I was surprised Gen.G didn't decide to take the Ashe from T1 as well, deciding to take the Renekton instead, forcing Pace to go with picks like Ziggs, which didn't seem the best since they now had to work with two mages and didn't have that constant damage output that comes from a traditional ADC. T1 have a double range bot lane versus Gen.G's melee support and scaling Ziggs carry, so Gen.G are going to try to avoid the direct 2v2 and go for a lane swap, as they would only get zoned super hard against the Ashe Renata. But T1 are going to try to predict how Gen.G moves by either swapping themselves, or will just stay in the original lanes, predicting that Gen.G will predict the swap. T1 decides to send their bot laners top. He immediately starts rotating towards bot lane after he sees T1 going into Gen.G's red side, because if he stayed top against a 3-man invade, he would get zoned out from EXP by the ranged Renata, and after Vi does a 3-camp clear hitting level 3, they'll be able to 3-man dive their Renekton that should still be stuck at level 1 for being zoned out, which will snowball super hard into the mid game as he would miss even more EXP and gold from dying. The Gen.G bot lane stays hidden out of vision the entire time, so that T1 don't get the info that they haven't lane swapped until the very end, successfully dodging the 2v2. T1 knows that Gen.G have 4 on the bot side, so Kirby gets ready to recall to help Zeus with a tower dive in a 2v4, but cancels the recall the moment he sees the teleport from Keen, preparing to go for a 3-man dive top, as he believes there's no longer a reason to recall to help Zeus in a 1v3. But Gen.G has Renekton soak up EXP bot until he's perfectly about to hit level 2 before sending in top. Now that Keen is level 2 instead of being stuck at level 1, he won't decide not to go for the 3-man dive, as the Renekton with his E-dashes and W stun would have a high chance at making the dive unsuccessful. Gen.G go for a 3-man dive onto Zeus, and Zeus perfectly times his body slam with the Leona stun, so that he can avoid the confirmed Leona Q to E stun, into Ziggs satchel stun, into Skarner E stun. But after it looks like Gen.G is about to get the free kill during the second attempt, Skarner's passive, which does damage over time, actually triggers the tower aggro again, which leads to an unfortunate situation where he has to flash out for the potential Gragas E flash, and Zeus escapes with his life after dodging one more Leona E. When these types of dives happen, I'm sure some people wonder why teams don't just wait for someone like Zeus to preemptively use their spells, like if Leona should just not even use Q and just walk up into range until after Gragas panics and uses the body slam early, but this is because of just how small the time frame is to actually secure the kill. Gen.G had to kill Zeus before this cannon minion dies, since it's actually the perfect amount of XP before Zeus hits level 3, as seen a few seconds later, and the extra spell at level 3 along with the small HP he gains upon level up would leave Zeus too hard to kill without risk, which is why teams usually have to accelerate the dive as much as possible while the player they're diving is still stuck at level 2. After King goes for an engaged top lane and walks out, Silas TP's top and Ziggs TP's bot, while Renekton takes over mid lane, as Gen.G try to catch every available minion resource as efficiently as possible. There's a ton of team movement by Gen.G here, where after catching a wave, Silas shifts back to mid, Renekton goes bot, and Ziggs recalls and goes top after buying items to get ready for the growth spawn at 6 minutes. However, both mid lane and top lane are slowly pushing out during the growth spawn, and along with Chovy getting chucked out mid with no TP, Gen.G opted to just go for a dragon while T1 secure the 3 grubs. T1 follow a very optimized strategy where after taking grubs, they send Carrier to constantly roam between lanes to get his demolish procs along with the extra grubs damage, and Vi hovers botting as a pseudo support so that Ashe can't get all-in on a 1v2. Since grubs are respawning soon, T1 want to recall and swap their laners so that they can get items and prepare for the fight without losing any minion waves, so everyone starts to go home. But since Gen.G also knows his timing, Hayes tries to use a blind Ziggs to stop the Ashe from getting the recall off, but just barely misses, and Gumayusi gets ready to rotate to the top side. Gen.G show up a little late, but manage to push T1 away from getting the 6 grubs, and T1 decide to actually contest and Gen.G get ready for an all-in engage with Chovy TPing in. Hayes faceplants into the back of the wall trying to W over but fails. Owner goes in with the VIQ, but before he can use his ult to buffer any stuns, he gets an instant flash W on Renekton, which leads to a CC chain that prevents the Vi from doing anything even with the Renata bailout. T1 are too slow to burst down the flashes for Renekton and have to walk away after giving up first blood at 11 minutes. Both teams try to push to get the first turret gold, and Pace goes for a flash W off screen to try to catch the flashes Gumayusi walking around the jungle, but is just out of range and trades his flash for Ashe's cleanse. Owner drags the Herald out as far as possible, as Faker and Gumayusi recall to hit their main item spike. The rest of T1 are going to try their best to stall Gen.G from getting the Herald until their carries get back, while Gen.G try to rush it down as fast as possible for the same reasons. Carry gets caught out a bit too far and doesn't manage to get his ult off before getting CC change, and Gen.G secures the perfectly timed pick before the rest of T1 come back, while also securing the Herald on their way out. Gen.G immediately all rotate towards mid with the numbers advantage and Herald, which also prevents T1 from rushing down their mid turret as well. T1 all group to siege the top turret after the fight, but Gen.G react accordingly and send everyone top after finishing off the mid turret, and T1 have to back off after they see Ziggs TPing in to defend. T1 decide to give up third dragon since they lost some control of the bot side of the map after sending everyone top, so they ping to try to rush to tier 2 while Gen.G secure the objective. The Hens gets caught out after warding the entire Baron area, and T1 uses the pick to take over the topside jungle, as Gen.G are forced to give up the space. Gen.G needs to defend a mid turret from going down to prevent the map from opening up, so they call for an all-in flank mid lane and manage to pick off Faker. But even after the pick right before the Baron is about to spawn, Gen.G can't actually rush it as they don't have the consistent damage from the comp. Dragon spawns and Gen.G go for the soul point, and they 100% know that T1 can try to go for a Baron rush, but T1 decide to go for it anyways to try to bait Gen.G away from the Dragon. T1 however bursts down the Baron way faster than Gen.G probably expected them to, and they show up late as Cannon tries his hardest to secure the Dragon before heading up. Chovy tries to pressure but doesn't see Faker's Q3 on Yone and gets caught out along with the Vi going down as well. Lehens gets isolated on the side as Zeus gets into a flank position, and this is where Paze makes a huge error in his target selection. He tries to save Lehens from dying, but just drags him away from the higher priority targets of T1 of Gumayushi and Faker, and since there's no extra damage coming out from Gen.G even after Cannon gets a crazy 2-man Skarno on the 2 carries, T1 cleans up another kill and leaves very happy with what they got. If Paige just gave up on his support and focused on the top side of the fight with Canyon and Keen tanking for him, Gen.G could have definitely killed Gumayushi with one more Ziggs Q, and even if they lost some members in return, Gen.G would have at least removed the Baron buff from the T1 members. T1 sent Faker alone top with the Baron buff and opt for a 4-man push bot. Gen.G know that they need at least 2 members to deal with Faker, so they try to force Faker down by going for a 5v4 engage bot lane with Chovy TP, but Owner spots the TP coming in and T1 decide to all back off a bit until Faker can continue pushing uncontested. Chovy has to give up on the flank immediately and sprint back top as a result. T1 want to play as slow as possible as they send Owner to push mid and leave Faker to push top, and Gen.G try their best to quickly find a pick with the numbers advantage before the side lanes get too far in. But T1 expertly maneuver themselves back and forth pressuring every lane until they slowly whittle down the turrets just outside of the range of Gen.G. Canyon walks up a little too far alone and gets picked off immediately, which leads to the Hens also getting hit by the Renata ult and eventually getting picked off as well. T1 decide to all recall even with the 5v3 advantage, as they just got a ton of gold from 2 kills and 3 turrets, and get ready for the final push as the Baron buffs go down. Gen.G's only chance at winning now is to secure the soul, so they make one final attempt at Dragon. Zeus and Carrier's ult hits the entire backline as Chovy tries to finish off Carrier that got stunned by the Leona ult. The Hens hits his E onto Owner just as he flashes, which drags Leona to the backrooms. Hayes blasts himself out of the fight with another poorly placed W, and once again decides to stay with his support instead of focusing the T1 carries on the other side, which leads to the T1 members barely walking out, and with just enough players surviving, they push for the win and take game 1 of the series. Gen.G's bot lane wants to avoid the 2v2 matchup once again, while T1 want to fight it out. Gen.G actually go deep through the bot side to ward in the middle of the lane, which mirrors the exact spot they were standing in themselves in the previous game to not get vision of where their bot laners were going. T1 think that Gen.G are going to lane swap, so they slowly move the bot laners top, but since they didn't actually get vision of anyone so far, they're basically just guessing at this point. Gen.G show the rel mid, but until T1 sees where the Kai'Sa is going, they kind of just walk back and forth mid, trying to figure it out, which makes them lose out on crucial early and minion EXP. Keen shows up bot, which makes T1 just decide to send Kayn top, expecting Kai'Sa to also be there, but then Kai'Sa shows up bot lane to lane with the top laner, which just destroys any type of plan T1 had going into this game. Gen.G went from giving as little information as possible at the start of the game, to overloading T1 all at once with the weirdest lane assignments, which worked out pretty well for Gen.G in the end. Gen.G looked for a 4-man tower dive bot, and since Kaylin had just been free farming top without seeing anyone, T1 expects Zeus to get dived and send carry a bot to help out in a 2v4, but Gen.G moves up at the right time to intercept and gets a free kill on the level 1 Braum, leaving Zeus to fend for himself bot lane in the 1v4. Zeus actually gets an insane Q knockback to W timing to dodge the Jack stun, but since there are too many members of Gen.G, Zeus goes down after a second dive attempt, and everyone walks away after juggling the tower aggro perfectly between the players. Keen also manages to TP top right as the wave crashes, so Gen.G are very happy with how the early game ended up. Kindred gets lucky in the Mark passes coin flip and takes as much of the topside jungle before backing out. Canyon gets a dash on Carrier and continues by trying to gank the lone ADC bot lane before immediately heading up to the Raptors due to the Kindred mark. As T1 are down in levels across the board except for the jungle, they try to go for a sneaky pick onto Paze while Gen.G do grubs, but Kai'Sa barely gets level 6 and escapes with a flash. Faker steals Paze's ult, and right before he can use it on Rel, the Hens makes a smart play and flashes back towards his side after it's stunned, so that Faker gets basically no distance from the stolen Kai'Sa ult, and with Silas being forced downwards, Canyon closes off his escape angle and Gen.G get another pick. T1 decides to give up Dragon, and Kindred goes to counter jungle again for the passive stack as Gen.G secure the objective. Since Grubs is also coming up in a minute, and T1 still don't really want to fight, they give up on it entirely and decide to go to the other side of the map to take down bot turret as fast as they can, but Gen.G react accordingly by sending both their bot laners as Canyon secures the objective alone. Owner tries to go for the enemy Raptors for another passive stack, but Gen.G push him out again as bot and mid lane slowly look to converge. The Hens hovers around the area until Canyon can come over to secure the Raptors himself and T1 back off. With second dragon coming up soon, Gen.G look to take the bot turret so they can make that side of the map more dangerous for T1 to walk up on, while also getting the first turret gold and platings, giving them better irons for the eventual fight as well. Carrier gets caught out while moving towards mid, but gets saved by the Kindred ult and Gen.G get ready for the next play. T1 once again decide to give up on the top side objective by going for a cross-map play on the bot side, since if they manage to get a pick, then they'll have prio for the dragon coming up soon. They successfully find the hens walking around the jungle and get a good flank off after a flash Braum stun from Carrier. Before T1 can get a free dragon, Gen.G look to push mid to force T1 to react, which gives time for Rel to respawn and potentially contest dragon again, while also letting Keen shove out top. After Gen.G have to back off, T1 started dragon, but Canyon manages to get the steal, since Kindred used Smite to take the red buff earlier and didn't have it up. Gen.G remember what happened in game 1 when they tried to get dragon when Baron was coming up, so they pushed T1 as far into the jungle as they can to prevent any kind of Baron rush, and they send their 2 highest damage dealers to secure the 3rd dragon, while the rest of Gen.G zone everyone out. Now all Gen.G have to do is just play slow until Dragon Soul spawns, which will force T1 to try to go for a fight or else they'll just lose late game. So Gen.G knowing this, will try their best not to overextend and wait for T1 to overcommit and engage. T1 finish the main item spikes and constantly look for aggressive angles, but Gen.G know they'll win the battle of attrition, so they continue playing safe until they see T1 walking up too far. T1 goes for one final attempt, but with all the advantages they accumulated over time, Gen.G secures Baron and absolutely destroys T1 in the next fight. Gumayushi also didn't die a single time in the last 8 games before this I believe, so this was his first death. After securing the last dragon, Gen.G make one final push and comfortably take game 2 in the series, bringing the score to 1-1. T1 hasn't seen a single person yet, so they ping bot, expecting there to be some kind of invade, but Zeus gets caught as a result, as all of Gen.G were just camping the top side. Gumayushi uses that info to immediately try to get vision of the bot lane, since T1 wants to once again 2v2 with the Astronaut into the Ezreal Rel. T1 stays out of vision as long as they can to not give the info that their bot laners are bot, and after they see Rel coming towards bot side from the mid vision, they zone out Ezreal from the farm and bully the Rel for breathing. The main reason why pro teams always want to set a double range bot lane into a bot lane that has a melee support is to use the range advantage to zone the enemies from getting near the wave, and after setting up a 3-wave slow push with the cannon, they will siege the turret for easy damage and get gold from platings, which is difficult to punish since if the melee support tries to engage the 2 range champions under tower, they will get hit by the huge minion wave and also has to give up the farm to focus the champions, which is a lose-lose situation. T1 sends their bot laners to go mid so they can get ready for grubs, since their double range siege comp gets much more value with that than with first dragon, along with preventing Jax from being an absolute menace with the grubs late game. There's an interesting moment here where after getting grubs, T1 made their standard play of sending everyone topside to siege, since everyone's in the area already, so might as well. But it looks like they miscalculated how fast Hayes was pushing out the mid wave, so they had to send Carrier to soak up the waves himself, which makes their overall pressure weaker and also losing out on EXP to the T1 members that need it. Gen.G expect T1 to recall for tempo to buy items, but T1 set up a nice play after Zeus gets his back cancelled. After shoving out the wave, Carrier and Gumayushi pretend to walk entirely away from the lane downwards as the hens chases, but the moment they get out of vision range, Carrier slowly circles back under the fog of war and sneaks into the bush with Scanner, which sets up a free kill after Owner gets into range to ult and pick off Keen even after the flash. Right before Grubs is about to spawn, T1 tried to pick off Keen once again to get numbers advantage, but the Ash Shower whiffs and Keen recalls with teleport ready. Since Zeus' TP is down, he has to quickly go back and walk to the objective, which gives Gen.G a small window where they had to pick someone off before all of T1 arrive. But since Chovy also doesn't have TP up, Gen.G's win condition is to quickly flank the T1 members and get a pick, while T1's win condition is to stall out the initial fight long enough for all 5 members to arrive. The initial fight looks heavily favored to Gen.G, as they look to be in a great position to get a 4-man flank off on the 2 members of T1, but Owner uses Vio to run towards the Jax and flashes out, with Carrier buffering his ult to go off even during the Rel stun, which stalls just long enough for Faker to show up with TP, which when combined with the Void Mice littering the river, actually forces Paige to an awkward position where he can't actually do any damage, effectively turning the fight from a 4v2 favor to Gen.G into a 3v4 that's terrible for them. After the Hens goes down, Faker picks off Keen in the top side, and T1 secure the remaining Grubs, which puts them in an overwhelmingly better position as they once again use the tempo from Grubs to siege top turret. While T1 recall, Gen.G try to answer back a little by taking the dragon. Now that there's nothing to do on the top side of the map, T1 throw everyone downwards to repeat the siege on the bot turret, which they eventually get after some careful zoning, while Zeus clears mid before heading back up to catch top. Now that there's nothing to do on the bot side of the map, T1 threw everyone again to Rift Herald, while Gen.G answered back with a cross-map play of a boss siege of their own. The main difference in these 2 sieges by both teams was the timing. Since T1 pushed the turrets before 14 minutes, they received all the extra gold from destroying the planes with Grubs, but since Gen.G only managed to siege after the planes went down, even if both bot turrets went down on paper, T1 received way more gold as a result of the early pressure when compared to the gold Gen.G got. But with Gen.G having to siege bot, T1 instantly looked to Herald mid with their numbers advantage and opens up the map with all tier 1 turrets down. The Hens gets caught staying a bit too long, which prompts T1 to continue pushing with Herald. Canyon tries to punish Carrier for driving without his license by spying the Herald right before it hits the turret, but that unfortunately gets him caught as well, as the rest of T1 show up to back up their support. After another pick, T1 continues snowballing their tempo, and seeing that there's no more minion wave to push with in mid lane, they all immediately head top to help Faker push the top turret as a wave arrives, which eventually leads to another tower dive, this time on Keen. During all of this, Chovy initially teleported to try to trade the bot turret for the Herald, but had to slowly walk all the way back to top lane to try to stop the insane T1 aggression. And by the time he showed up, 3 of his teammates died and Gen.G lost 2 turrets. Like, imagine going to the convenience store for some snacks and you come back and like half of your house is gone. T1 take bot tier 2 turret to get ready for the dragon as Gen.G finish up mid tier 1 and both teams get ready for the eventual fight. King tries to sneak the top turret with the timing of the dragon spawn, but T1 push him out with a nice Ash arrow and Faker roaming up. As T1 secures the dragon, Gen.G try to look for something top as he sent 4 members, but there isn't really much they can do other than a random pick, and decide to just go back to prevent T1 from just running through the mid tier 2. Lehens however gets caught again rotating to mid, and Faker barely doesn't cancel Pace's recall as T1 tries to converge onto the 2 members of Gen.G that couldn't get out. Gen.G's indecision leads to another 2 picks from T1, and they reset to get ready for Baron. Carrier gets caught out, but somehow survives with the bailout after Canyon goes down, which leads to an overall 1-for-3 trade, as T1 pressures mid afterwards with the Akali TP. T1 looks towards Baron and tries to bleed out the vision Gen.G has, but Gen.G pulled the trigger with the Chovy TP, and combined with the Nocturnal, making it hard to figure out where anyone is coming from. Gen.G managed to trade 1-for-1, which gives them some breathing room as T1 are forced back without their ADC. Faker engages onto Chovy, with both teams slowly walking out for a potential 5v5, but neither team is entirely in position to fight, so T1 slowly back off towards mid to finish out the tier 2, while Gen.G try to reposition. Since all of Gen.G were gravitated more towards top than T1 was, Owner secures the dragon uncontested, while Gen.G try to use that info to look for a sneaky pick towards the Baron side, with Canyon ready to jump in with Nocturnal. But Gen.G don't get the picking what they wanted, and try to escape as fast as they can, which ends up costing Lehens his life, and T1 regains some space back around the Baron. T1 try to get rid of some vision around the area before starting the Baron, but eventually decide to back off after seeing Gen.G a bit closer than expected, opting to just wait for the next dragon to spawn, to force Gen.G to go for something around the soul timer. Deus sets up a huge wave bot before walking to Baron, knowing King would probably come to stop the push, but the moment Jack shows up in vision, T1 all ping to look for an engage onto Gen.G. The Ash Arrow forces Chovy to use ult, and Carry gets a max range Q onto Pace, starts the fight. Owner follows Pace over the wall with Violet and flashes above them during the Nocturnal to separate Gen.G's focus between himself and the rest of his team. Faker forces Pace to leave the fight and the rest of Gen.G scramble to run away, as T1 slowly picks them off one by one and pushes for the win. King tries his best to clear the minions to stall for a little bit more time, but with the grubs and another wave showing up, T1 takes game 3 and goes up 2-1, bringing the series to match point. Hurry up, puck game! T1 knock out pretty hard here actually. Gen.G go for a late invade with scanner into the T1 blue side, but just as the scanner wears out, T1 walk into range and sees Gen.G with their own scanner. And Carrier somehow hooks literally the best target they could have hooked, which is the immobile Ashe. Since both bot laners of T1 have Halo Blaze and Pace flashes down, you can bet bot lane's gonna be unplayable for like 5 minutes. Carrier gets another hook, forcing the Maokai flash. I also really like the mind games happening between both junglers during this time. Gen.G warded both entrances of their own blue side before heading for the late invade into T1's jungle to make sure Owner doesn't invade without Gen.G knowing. Since Canyon did the enemy blue and hasn't seen Owner invade yet, he knows that Skarner started on T1 red side. Meanwhile, Owner knows that Nidalee is doing the blue on T1 side since he got spotted by the T1 bot laners. This is where it gets interesting. Owner knows that Nidalee might do all 3 of his camps, which usually means going from blue to Gromp to wolves. So Owner does his raptors and immediately rushes over to his wolves, since in his mind, he'll be able to take it while Nidalee is doing his Gromp. However, Nidalee goes from enemy blue to his own raptors into his own blue side, expecting Owner to potentially go from the T1 red side into Gen.G blue side to counter what could be happening on the other side of the map. But look at the map now. Canyon has confirmed that Owner hasn't stolen blue yet, but that means in Canyon's eyes, Owner is still somewhere in T1 side. So Canyon actually places a Nidalee trap right next to his blue buff instead of taking it, so that if Owner came over to invade, Gen.G would know about it, as the trap would most likely be stepped on by either Skarner or the blue buff. This leads Pace to go for a hawkshot to get vision of the T1 blue side, and just as they confirm that the wolves are gone, Owner goes for a gank mid and Chovy loses Splash. Since both Gen.G bot laners lost Flash, and with how Owner path towards bot side from mid, Canyon sticks around to make sure that bot lane can't get dived, and T1 caught it off as soon as they see Nidalee waiting on the side. Canyon walks up a little too far, and Faker goes in. Faker gets as physically close to Nidalee as he can to make the charm as undodgeable as possible, and right as Owner gets into range, the Aura charm lands at point blank range and CC chains Canyon before he can use Flash, getting T1 the first blood. But Gen.G really don't want to give T1 another free set of grubs, so they look to contest even with a man down. Lehens gets CC charmed by the Pexton and Ahri charm, and even though he dies pretty early in the fight, he makes a great play and manages to knock Faker away from the fight, and also forces Gumayushi to flash away, which actually lets Gen.G secure the last 2 grubs as T1 no longer have any more ranged damage sources. With the grubs, Gen.G looked to siege top as a 4-man since bottom is slow pushing towards T1 side, but T1 is quick to react and is already in position to prevent the dive. Carrier goes for an engage and manages to hook Pace while also dragging Maokai back into his turret with Pike E, and Gen.G are nowhere in position to follow up and had to run away to match Zeus' push bot lane. Just a small thing here, I think it's cool how Carrier hooked a melee minion onto the path of Gumayushi's Varus Q, making the wave clear just a slight bit faster. I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it was neat nonetheless. Gen.G secure Dragon while T1 takes space in the top side to get ready for grubs, and since Pace in the bot lane while Zeus still has TP up, Gen.G decides to give up the objective. T1 slowly moved towards top for a potential 4-man push with grubs again, but with Gen.G fully ready for it and with how fast Tristana can push mid, T1 decided to just call off immediately. Carrier gets vision of Gen.G's blue side and knows that Pace is alone for now. They look for a dive on the Ashe in a small window where Gen.G aren't in position to help out, and T1 takes his flash. Faker TP's top to get first turret gold, and Zeus and Keen both TP in to get ready for the Herald fight. Gen.G want the Herald as fast as they can, but T1 have an insane flanking goal on both sides and manages to poke the hands down before he can do anything. Chovy looks for a kill onto Carrier as Gen.G finish up the Herald, and just barely doesn't get the reset on the rocket jump as Carrier flashes right before the last auto attack can go through. Zeus sprints to take mid during the commotion and forces Keen's flash, which leads to a free dragon for T1 and an eventual bot turret. Lens gets caught out again for being a tree and gets CC changed into the ground. Gen.G has to take back control of the game and uses Herald mid to try to open up the map for a potential Baron push. Owner times his Skarner E to hit Lehens the moment he gets ejected from the Herald, but King gets another crazy ultimate onto Gumayushi, keeping the Maokai alive, and Gen.G walks away, with Chovy running to push top lane while T1 are all gathered around mid. Faker TP's top to stop the push, and Cannon gets a perfect spear, which leads to Faker eventually falling, but Gen.G have overextended too far for the kill, and lose 2 in return as T1 are right behind the follow-up. T1 started Baron, so Gen.G had to look for some kind of cross-map play, so Chovy TP's mid to push with pace, try to get something as T1 rush it down as fast as they can. They send Carrier to the Dragon to be as annoying as possible, as Pike wouldn't really help that much with the Baron damage, and are able to get Gen.G to fall back once again. T1 5-man siege, while Gen.G 5-man defends, and King once again gets a crazy Poppy ultimate to stop the potential follow-up damage. The rest of Gen.G move on to the remaining 2 members of T1, and Zeus eventually falls with King getting into Pike execute range. Right before the Pike Gold and Varus E can land, King goes forwards to stop the reset and do as much damage as possible, which leads to Carrier going down as well. Like dude, King was working super overtime this game. It's actually insane how many clutch moments he had to keep Gen.G in it. T1 try to look for picks, but Gen.G plays super optimally and tries to stall out as long as they can, as Pike's effectiveness goes down really hard late game. King TP's in, and the Varus barely misses Canyon after getting Pike hooked. Owner gets a dragon, but Key knocks Faker out of the fight, forcing him to have to TP back, while the rest of Gen.G looks at the remaining members of T1, with Gumayushi being effectively zoned away from the fight. Keen also stuns Carrier after the Pyko doesn't execute, and after Zeus goes down, Faker tries to finish off Chovy only to go down himself, and Gen.G manages to ace T1 with Varus as the last survivor as they head to Baron. With a combination of Nidalee poke, heals, and Baron buff, T1 eventually had to give up top after a failed pick onto Lehens. With Dragon Soul for T1 coming up, it was do or die for both teams, as they both converge mid for potentially the final fight.
Nature's Grasp going to cut out the arrow, connecting onto Owner, Chains of Corruption, just to try and buy some space with the flash, onto Faker, the knock-up, and he's dead, Pace's arrows follow him into the death chamber as the Impale is decent, Owner's still alive, he's so tanky, and it's Gumayushi taking matters into his own hands, the spears go wide and the Muffin goes down, it's a double kill for the Skarner, and Chovy's still alive, there's a bit of damage, but he gets over the wall, flashes, but the bone skewer finds him.
The fight started with Faker getting picked off next to the Raptor wall, with the rest of T1 looking like they were soon to follow. This exact spot was where Faker got cut out 7 years ago in the 2017 World Finals against Samsung Galaxy, which led to his team losing shortly after. It looked like history was about to repeat itself, as T1 would now have to fight a 4v5 without their mid laner once again. But Owner manages to get a crazy 2-man ult onto Pace and Keen, followed by the double Carrier stun into the double Zeus stun, and after focusing King together, T1 chased down the rest of Gen.G and finished off Chovy with a final kill from both Carrier and Gumayushi, avenging the fallen mid laner. Cannon tries one last time to kill the minions, but in the end, all of T1 pushed together to win the series 3-1 and continues on to the 2024 World Finals against BOG. This part of the video is just here as a spoiler block in case someone for some reason didn't watch the series but then proceeds to watch the video instead. So I'll just be talking about some random thoughts to not spoil the outcome of the video based on the amount of time left, you know? I feel like it's so interesting to see just how the playstyles of teams like T1 and Gen.G interact. Like for example, I think that T1 is like the best team at snowballing, which you saw from how Game 3 went in particular, where they always try to get something out of the pick over an objective. When they get a pick, they immediately try to take up space by getting vision in the enemy jungle, or just rush an objective like Grubs. But then after taking Grubs, they use that to siege third planings right away, which extends their gold lead even further. Like don't get me wrong, that's pretty standard macro for pro play, but just the speed at which all the members of T1 are on the same page makes them look so unified in their decision making sometimes, at least with this roster at this point in time. Meanwhile, I think teams like this version of Gen.G are the best at slow methodical plays, where if you give them time to scale into late game, they're probably the best team in the world. It's also probably why, until this series in particular, Gen.G were on an insane win streak against T1 because of the nature of the playstyles. T1 needs that first kill to snowball their lead, but if a team like Gen.G plays consistently enough and doesn't ever give away that one kill, then Gen.G just slowly chips away until they win. If T1 was Scissors and Gen.G was Rock, then it makes sense why Gen.G beat T1 so often until the tournament, because all the Rock has to do is just be solid enough to not get cut. It's just that T1 for some reason, like Faker in particular, showed up towards the end of the world with like a jackhammer and just demolished the Rock from time to time. Like, I don't know, dude. This video was a little late because I was busy doing live stuff and working on other videos for the end of the year, and only recently got time to finish it up, so I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's any other games you want me to review next year with the new season coming out, and I'll see what I can do. But until then, I'll smell you later.
Ist gut.